It is this odd, I think, thing going on where there's not a lot of public debate, at least within mainstream politics, over the war on terror. There might be a debate over one conflict or another, but the idea of actually ending the war on terror, full stop, is not discussed so much. But at the same time, it seems to me that the war on terror has in subtle but extremely powerful ways really transformed American politics in a way that I think really played a big role in making President Trump a possibility. Looking back to 2001, 2002, 2003, the war on terror, as odd as it is to say this, was really guided by these idealist utopian principles held by neoconservatives, that the U.S. was going to transform the world and bring democracy to the dark corners governed by dictatorship. And as everything really went to shit, I think this profound cynicism took hold when the neoconservative dream turned into a nightmare.
I don't know if it's cynicism or just simply confusion leading to sort of an unwillingness to confront the reality that is. I mean, I want to agree with the point you made. As much as the neoconservatives in some senses were crazy, but the one thing you can say in their favor is that they had a vision after 9/11. You described it. We're going to use overwhelming military power. We're going to transform large parts of the Islamic world. We're going to bring freedom and democracy. And once we've done that, we won't have to be worried about being attacked from that quarter. That's what they thought that they would achieve by, in particular, through the war in Iraq. It was lunacy. But at least there was some logic to the wars that they proposed. Once they failed, that logic went away and has never been replaced. And again, I think you are correct in seeing in some, at least partial way, an explanation for Donald Trump's political success. Because, I mean, what was Hillary Clinton's position on this ongoing war on terror? She certainly didn't offer a path to victory, to bringing the wars to an end. Her own record as a quote-unquote liberal interventionist suggested that had she been elected president, we were going to get simply more of the same. The wars would simply continue. And Trump, the candidate, and I emphasize distinguishing him from Trump, the president, Trump, the candidate, was the guy who said out loud, no, it's all stupid. These wars are stupid. Elect me president, we're not going to have any more stupid wars. And that's not what he's done. But I do believe that among the factors that persuaded large numbers of our fellow citizens to vote into office somebody who is manifestly unqualified to be president is because at least he had the wit to recognize that U.S. national security policy, particularly since 9/11, has gone off the rails. And he was willing to say that out loud.
And he did so in a way that was more, it was distinctly Trumpian, but it was also a critique of the war that was nationalist rather than anti-imperialist, in the sense that he said, well, we shouldn't have invaded Iraq, but since we did, we should have taken their oil.
Yes,
There's something very powerful about that.
Yeah. That somehow or other this needs to work to our benefit. Again, and I should emphasize, it seems to me that whether or not Trump believed any of that or understood any of that, that is to say what he said as a candidate, that's not what we have gotten from President Trump. What we've gotten from President Trump is aimlessness, impulsiveness, decisions made or not made without any reference to principles. Again, draw the contrast between Trump and the neoconservatives. At least they could fashion an argument as to how there was some purpose to be served by undertaking the exertions that they proposed from President Trump, we get no rationale whatsoever, and I don't believe we actually have anything that qualifies as a policy today.
A listener, Sean McBride, called in a question that I'm going to summarize for you about Trump's approach, specifically with regard to Afghanistan, where apparently the potential profits from mining in that country have really captured his interests. What do you make of that? And do you think if he goes through with it, that will provide an opportunity for anti-war activists to highlight how fundamentally bankrupt?
I don't take that seriously. I mean, this is something that Trump, read online or saw on a briefing slide or whatever. It's something that captured his fancy for a minute and a half. I mean, it seems to me that one of the trademarks of his presidency is this grabbing hold of some little factoid that then becomes a subject of a tweet, and therefore seems to be an indication of an emergent policy. And a day and a half later, that's all forgotten. So I honestly don't know that I would take all that notion seriously.
You recently wrote a piece in the London Review of Books about President Truman's firing of General Douglas MacArthur and how that might serve to illuminate the tensions inherent in a democratic country running a global empire. Trump obviously has packed his administration with generals and seems to have quite a soft spot for military brass, even just on a very basic personality, attitude, tough guy. It's his type of masculinity. What does his love affair with generals tell us, or what should it tell us about foreign policy, about his foreign policy?
Well, I'm not sure I know. I mean, you described it well, I think, that for whatever peculiar reasons, he seems to have an affinity for generals. What is it about generals that he likes? Their manner, their posture, their willingness to say yes or no, sir. I don't know. We compare Trump the candidate with Trump the president, and we see contradictions. As a candidate, he famously claimed to know more than all the generals who were presiding over American wars, who he derided as incompetent. So how you get from that to where we have Kelly and Mattis and McMaster being sort of the top dogs of the administration is somewhat baffling to me. I think, among other things, it suggests an absence of any sensitivity to one of the core traditions of U.S. civil-military relations, which is to emphasize civilian primacy. Now, as I suggested in that essay that you referred to, the reality of civilian control tends to be complicated. But there at least has been, and it's not a trivial thing, there at least has been lip service paid to the principle of civilian control by all parties pretty consistently since MacArthur's confrontation with Truman back during the Korean War. Again, underneath the surface, it can be ugly and dishonest, but on the surface, everybody salutes and says, yes, the civilians are in charge, the generals advise, and then they follow orders. I fear that installing generals in positions that usually, not always, are reserved for civilians can, whether intentionally or not, undermine that basic principle. And that would not be a good thing. I don't believe that the appointments that Trump has made in and of themselves compromise the principle, but it's a step in the wrong direction.